and he's talking about the social impact of the Nashville flood of 2010, but he's also giving us additional information in reference to the situation prior to the flood and the situation after the flood. And of course, Dr. Padgett, let's continue our discussion during this final segment dealing with the social impact of the Nashville flood.
Okay, so even after the flood of 2010, we continue to look at this flood in terms of both its physical nature and its social impacts upon communities. In terms of its physical nature, a lot of people heard that it was a 500-year flood or it was a 1,000-year flood, but people should not say, oh, we got that one out of the way, there's not going to be another one for another 500 years. That is absolutely not true. We could have another flood of 2010 this year or next year or tomorrow. It's all based upon probability. And so understanding that this type of thing could happen again, we have to look at our preparedness, and specifically we want to almost triage the way that we go about protecting the community. And first determine, well, who needs help the most? Who has the greatest risk? Who has the highest vulnerability in the chance that this type of thing happens again? And it probably will, in all probability. And so I actually teamed up with Dr. Nia Fotheringham, who was at Meharry Medical College, and she wanted to look at the community vulnerability and to some degree from the public health standpoint. And so we used geographic information systems mapping and something called the Social Vulnerability Index, which is a way to quantify vulnerability, put it in numeric terms, and then take those numbers and put those numbers in a map. And then each census tract in Nashville-Davidson County was treated as a community. And so we wanted to see what are the most vulnerable communities in Nashville so that resources would go there first in the event of something like this. And so we worked and had some very interesting results. One of the results that we came up with was that in the most vulnerable communities, they have the least number of shelters or the lowest shelter capacity as compared to the least vulnerable community. So the people that need the least help have the most shelters and resources available. The people that need the most help have almost nothing. In fact, in the most vulnerable census tract, which was in the Nolensville-Murfreesboro Road area, which surprised us. We assumed that North Nashville, Bordeaux, somewhere in there would be the most vulnerable, somewhere within the 37208 zip code area. However, when you consider that Nashville is an international community, that through the Refugee Resettlement Program, we have all kinds of people here from all over the world, Sudanese, Somalians, Hmong, Kurds, and they kind of settle in that southeast Nashville corridor, that when you add in the language barrier, that adds another layer of vulnerability on top of low income and whatever else you might want to put there. And so we were surprised to find that. And so communication in times of emergency is very important. And if you don't speak the so-called dominant language of a region, obviously that's going to put people at greater risk. They're not going to know what's happening, where to go, or what to do. And really, communication was one of the main problems that occurred with the flood. We had the Army Corps of Engineers and the National Weather Service. Now, normally the Army Corps of Engineers communicates with the National Weather Service, and the National Weather Service communicates with the news people on television, the TV meteorologists. But what happened is the Cumberland River isn't really a river, it's a lake that is maintained by a series of dams. And so during the storm, which was unprecedented, you know, we had 17 to 20 inches of precipitation. No one's ever seen anything like that. The Army Corps really thought that we might lose one of the dams. You know, the Percy Priest Dam is one of the other ones. So they released all the water. The dams weren't stopping anything. And when you do that, it kind of throws off the ability for the National Weather Service to predict what's going to happen. And so by mistake, the National Weather Service missed the time and date of the crest of the flood, when it was going to be at its highest level. And it caught a lot of people off guard. A lot of people went to bed Sunday night thinking, oh, it's over, not realizing even after it stops raining, a river can keep on rising. And so people wound up losing cars. Obviously, people lost their lives. And then there's lawsuits going around with the Opryland and others who are suing the Army Corps of Engineers and the Weather Service and others because of, so even at the highest level, there's a breakdown in communication. So obviously, when people are in communities that are vulnerable,
The very lowest.
yeah, they're not having access to communication tools can be very, very serious. So,